Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of tabifolk Talks. I'm here today with Lorraine from Becoming rentABLE. Thank you, Lorraine, for joining us.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, great. Well, before we start, I'll give a visual descriptor of myself. I'll have Lorraine do the same. Then I'll give a little intro and then get right into the questions. So, a visual descriptor. So, there's two video boxes against a navy background with the Tabby Folk logo in the right. I'm in one of the boxes. I'm in front of like a beige background, and I'm a white woman with brown hair wearing a gray sweater. And Lorraine, if you don't mind giving a visual descriptor.
Sure. I am a white woman with gray hair wearing blue glasses with a red sweater, yellow dress. And behind me is my desk that has lots of paint on it and a Duke basketball.
Nice. March Madness coming up, but I won't get off topic.
Oh, I
Uh,
will.
if you're not familiar with Tabby Folk, it's a forum-based website that's all about inclusive and accessible travel. So it's for people who are interested in sharing information that they have, just talking about their travel adventures, or asking questions to learn more about specific places. We have all different types of forums, like sensory inclusive travel, Disney parks, cruises, anything you can think of. So if you're interested, make a profile on tabifolk.com or download the app tabifolk on your phone. So as we go through tonight, feel free to leave any questions for Lorraine. And if we don't get some live, we'll be sure to get them answered afterwards on tabifolk.com. And this will be available to watch on YouTube as well after the fact. So, without further ado, Lorraine, please tell us a little bit about yourself and becoming rentABLE.
Sure. I am proud to say I am 63 years old, which I'm like, thank you, God. I have muscular dystrophy. So I was diagnosed at 2. So it's been a way of life for me. I use an electric wheelchair. We have 2 adult sons that also have MD. And so I understand disability from a professional standpoint, a personal one as a mom and an individual with a disability. And so I feel very, very fortunate to be living my purposeful life. There's so many times in life, it's like, I don't understand why that happened. And now pulling this together through becoming rentABLE, it's like, I get it. And I'm without a doubt being able to hopefully make a difference in the lives of people with disabilities who want to travel.
That's amazing. I love that, how there's, as an invisible string, sometimes people have been saying that connects different things in our lives. That's awesome. So, I feel like a quick summary of becoming rentABLE is that it's like an Airbnb for accessible rentals. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. We are a single source. We're a listing platform. So that's one thing that we're different. We list properties on our website. We are not a booking platform. So if you went to Airbnb, booking.com, Verbo, where you would actually book that, that's too difficult. We want to be that source that you can come to and find accessible short-term rentals. So we actually have 111 booking platforms that have their accessible properties on our map, on our site. What is different about becoming rentABLE is all of the properties on our site have been evaluated for accessibility and validated. So many times when we've traveled as a family, you see or read going, oh, it's going to, have the doors that I need or the height of the bed that I need. And we get there and there's 3 steps to get in the house. And so that evaluation validation is a critical point for the work that we're doing.
That's awesome. And that's great that you're able to like pull information from so many different sources and things like that. That's great. So how did you come up with the idea for becoming rentABLE?
My boys were graduating high school, and it's like traveling was difficult. I mean, there's 3 of us. And imagine getting in a van, 3 scooters, chairs, 4 people, snacks, and then finding a place that we all can enjoy. And so we ended up building a accessible property to meet our family's needs. about 3 hours away from Raleigh, North Carolina, where we live, on a little island called Carolina Beach. It's near Wilmington. So we built an accessible property for our family, but I had the second floor devoted as a short-term rental because I had to pay for it, right? And so it's through I was turning 60. We're a new company, just get celebrating our fourth year. And so I was sitting outside and I'm going, okay, I want to do one last hurrah in my career. What brings me joy and happiness? And it was my renters. We've had over now 450 families that stayed at our short-term rental, and all of their comments about accessibility were the same. It was how difficult it was to find a place that met their needs. And it's like, why is this such a problem? What is the solution? And that's how Becoming Rentable got started.
That's awesome. I love that how you were able to, do multiple things at the same time, and then even more has built off of that. I was surprised when you said it was only 3 years old. I didn't realize the company was as, new. That's amazing how much you've been able to accomplish in this amount of time.
Thank you.
Um, so I saw that your team did a national survey about accessibility. So what are some interesting insights or stats that you uncovered?
We are very, very fortunate to work with a capstone project out of Duke University and their statistics master level students. And it's through their capstone that created a survey. And now they're collecting that data for a report that will be out in sometime in April, 1st of May. What we're finding out is a confirmation, and the numbers I don't have specifics, but we know that 60 to 75% of people with disabilities want to travel. They have the desire to travel. They have the money to travel, but accommodations is the number one factor of why they don't travel. So we found that if you're looking at accessibility and cost, people would pay more for an accessible place to stay versus not being able to travel, and that's pretty significant. In our sharing of information with booking platforms or companies who represent short-term rentals, there's a fear factor. And, we try to share information about the ADA and what it includes in a short-term rental and what it doesn't include. And because people who have a short-term rental are afraid they're going to get sued. And so by sharing the information that the students at Duke are pulling together is reiterating how people want to travel, and that they have, what their fears are and what their needs are. So we can, again, try to eliminate the fears through the ADA and show the business value of an accessible short-term rental. So many times the fear outweighs the business side of it. And it is a great business. We have 2 short-term rentals ourselves, and, we outbook our neighbors who don't have an accessible place to stay.
Oh, wow, that's really interesting. That's a really compelling fact. Yeah, I really look forward to the full report because I always say like when I'm creating content, not just creating content, but just talking with people, even people I know, like disability education so much is like a balance between empathy and just objectivity. But so often I find that, the objective facts like why this is good for business, like stats are what turn people the most. And at times it can be a little disappointing, like why isn't just the empathetic parts that we're human and want to do the same things enough? But sometimes it's not to get people convinced. And it's I think the business side is a great way to argue points. Like I said, I really look forward to more because I love having stats to back up my points too.
You're not alone, and it's really interesting because I'm not the stat person. Jennifer Springer, who's our COO, is, and I'm finding out as we talk with different groups, it's like, well, what are the statistics to back that up? And so I'm so grateful to be working at Duke with their master level students to be able to pull that together in a way that will be very effective.
Yeah, no, definitely. That sounds great. So speaking of like another business venture. I saw you were part of Expedia Group's Open World Accelerator program. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is and what your experience was?
It was a great experience. It was great for a lot of reasons. We were accepted into the Accelerator program in November of 23. They had an application which we filled out. They chose 12 companies around the world. There were 6 from the US and 6 from outside the US. And it was a 5-month program where every week we had the opportunity to talk with different leaders within the Expedia Group and learn about how a large travel booking company works, and just really help gain knowledge about, again, we were about a year and a half old when we got started, and it really helped us navigate who we are, what we're doing, what is, how do we market a return on investment? How do we look at scaling our business? I mean, there was a lot of language that I wasn't familiar with because I hadn't had that experience before. So, and we met these amazing groups like folks, the owners of Wheel the World, Be My Eyes, Green Book. And so we met groups that represented all underserved populations, LGBTQ, our Black community, people who are blind, who have hearing issues, mobility. And we've all stayed friends and in contact, which is really nice. I love that camaraderie that we were all kind of experiencing a lot of similarities. We were all young in our business development. At the end of our project, we had the privilege of going out to Seattle and making a presentation to the executives of Expedia, which was scary, scary, scary. I was so scared. Everybody, like, we had these humongous, like 6-foot screens that our text was on, and there were 2 of them. So no matter where you were on the stage, you could look up there. Well, I was like nervous, Nelly. I'm shaking like that. And I ended up going, I can't read that. And I just talked to the audience and I'm like, here's my paper. I'm going to go with this instead of looking at the screen. And it worked out well. At the end of that weekend, Expedia selected one company that they wanted to sign a contract with, and it was Becoming Rentable. And
Wow.
so we, in fact, met today on an educational campaign that will be rolled out next month to the Verbo host. As we, again, education is so important, from not only people host who have a rental, but even to our disability community. I find that some of my greatest critics are people that are like me in a wheelchair. So we, in Becoming Rentable, really look at accessibility in very broad terms. So instead of being wheelchair accessible, we say mobility to include walkers and crutches and canes. And we look at cognitive issues with dementia and autism and mental health. So it's very broad. So when we're promoting accessibility and we have a property and it has 1 step to enter the property, we identify the access of that. And so many times my disability community goes, Lorraine, why are you doing that? That's not accessible to me. And it's like, it's not to me either, but it is to others. And it's about your choices. It's not like this 10-point checklist. If you have these 10 things, then, oh, you're an accessible property. I learned that from my boys. What I need is different than Alexander, and what Alexander needs is different than Nathan's. And so we created Becoming Rentable. We've put together 63 filters, 43 for mobility needs and 20 for cognitive needs. So you can then select what your needs are, and then our accessible properties will then populate to the top that meet your needs. And so Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't realize that you had gotten the top spot, so that's very exciting. Because I know Expedia is just a huge name in the travel business. And I love how they really believed in the mission, and that's great that you are close with the other members of your cohort as well. I because it's I think so much is done like when you have like more like community, and you can make a difference more like together and things like that. So I think that that's great and super exciting. So you told us a bit about like the filters and things like that, and you had also mentioned your first beach accessible rental property. But I noticed you also have a little yellow house. That's a great model for accessibility. So I don't know if you want to like maybe highlight any features that make it um different than something that would be like an accessible room at a hotel, or any features in those that you would like to highlight?
Sure. What's funny is what I look for as somebody using a wheelchair. Sometimes people may not think of it as an accessibility feature. So when I'm talking to groups, I ask them, well, what type of surface do you have? So I'm coming in my accessible van and now I'm driving up to your property. What is my van going to sit on? What am I going to get out? So a hard surface like concrete driveway, that is an accessible surface. I cannot get out in gravel. My wheels will just spin. If you're dirt, I will get stuck. If you're grass, I will get stuck. And so people don't think, wait a minute, I have that. And it's like, well, share that on your post. Yes, we have an elevator in the beach. We have 32 and 36-inch doors. In our little yellow house, we have the dishwasher elevated high. So you have that space underneath the dishwasher. So we did a pull-out drawer for animals, food, and water. So when you bring your service dog, your service animal, you just roll that out and you can put your water and food, which is fun. One of my favorite things, if you go to becomingrentable.com and you check out our little yellow house, one of the things that we did is we have a Hoyer lift. And the Hoyer lift is quite large. And the room, it's an 1,100 square foot house, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, living room, kitchen, laundry, and back entry. So it's really small. And the back bedroom is really small. And so I didn't want our guests to be alarmed by this humongous, well, it's not really humongous, but it's a large metal contraption known as a Hoyer lift. So I took part of a closet from the small bedroom, part of the closet from the primary bedroom, and we made a little house. The ceiling heights, it's another little yellow house, but it's for children that might have autism and need a calm place to go. It's a place for younger children to go in and play. We have stuffed animals, we have dishes in there, a fold down table, and it's a place for us to put the Hoyer lift. So when you go into the room, you see this cute little house that a mom and dad and a young child could go in and play and be there, and also another place. So it doesn't look like, it's scary. One of the things that we wanted to achieve with the little yellow house, it's our model house of what does an accessible property look like that has features for mobility and cognitive vision and hearing. And so it looks, some people say it looks like a little cupcake shop. But people are really surprised by, they go, Lorraine, there are 4 steps to enter the property. How is that accessible? And what I share with them is a front door doesn't always have to be your accessible entrance. Because of how narrow the lot is, we made the back entrance the primary entrance for accessibility. So we looked at that. We have our elevated washer and dryer side by side, so it's easy access to do laundry. One of the things that I love doing that you'll see at the little yellow house is we put a king size headboard. We actually nail it to the walls, and we put a twin bed on one side and a twin hospital bed on the other side, and we use a king size comforter. So visually, it looks like a king size bed, but when you pull that comforter back, you have a hospital bed and you have a traditional twin bed. and that's usually that equals the size of a king. But it doesn't have that look of it. And that was one of the things that was important in the little yellow houses, to bring about accessibility in a fun, creative way that achieved the goals but wasn't sterile.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome because I know like things like a Hoyer lift, like people really need on vacation. Like that's like a non-negotiable, but often they have to find a way to like rent it or something like that. And then like the hotel bed may not even be suitable for it. So that's amazing that it's right there. And then a hospital bed as well would be the same thing, but even potentially more difficult to bring in somewhere. But I love that you also paid attention to the aesthetics as well. That's really awesome. And I just love the idea of it being a model house, because like I feel like there's so much progress to be made just with people's everyday living, like even if they're not disabled. Like I saw these like two brand new houses that were built, and they were like over $1 million houses, and then my aunt was like, oh, I love those houses, they were near her, and I was like, and that to build a house in like 2025 with like all the entrances, none of them being accessible, and you're paying over $1 million for it. I'm like, that is not smart design. And then yeah, so it's like I just feel like there needs to be a lot more innovation with just all types of building, but people need to create a seat for disabled people, you know, at the table in order to get those insights. Or like you create the table and the seats yourself. So I
That's
love
right.
that. Um,
Well, I was going to comment on your on the $1 million properties, because recently somebody was had a short term rental, a very large short term rental in that $1 million range, and they said, Lorraine, all of our entries have steps, so I guess we can't be an accessible property here. And they showed me that their bathroom was fabulous. I mean, everything I would ever want in a bathroom they had. And I said, let's go to your garage. And I said, would you be open to getting rid of that platform and putting an electric platform in? And so they put it with a platform lift. And she said, yeah, but that's going to cost me a lot of money. I said, well, let's go online and look. And we found exactly what she needed for $2,000. So
oh
there's
wow.
this idea again that accessibility costs $20,000 to do something, and it can, without a doubt. An elevator does cost 20,000, 25,000. But there are other ways to bring about that accessible entrance without creating a long ramp. And one was the platform lift, in which they did, and now they have an accessible rental for like a family or a party of 18.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
So again, their return on investment, they made it in just one booking because their rates are so high of accommodating that many people. It had so many accessible features and an elevator in the house, that their return was outstanding. But it's again thinking a little creatively.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how those type of add-ons are becoming, I've seen that as well, where they're getting into a better price range. But you know, as people just kind of thought about it in the beginning, that would save them even more as well, because it's a bit easier than retrofitting. But I love how those add-ons are becoming more accessible. I've seen that. I don't know if you're familiar with a company called We Hear You, with the accessible doors. They're another
Mhm.
great one to check out. That's being doing a lot of great work in that space. So what you did talk about it a bit about how there's like the different filters and all that. But what is the certification process like? Is it like what does your team do to like make sure everything is you know, certifiable before
Sure.
putting it on becoming rentable?
Sure. So the first thing we do is we offer people to take a quiz. It takes about 3 minutes. And I use me as the example. And so we ask questions, and basically we want to know, can somebody in a wheelchair, particularly because if it's a wheelchair, chances are it will be accessible for the walker, crutches, and canes. And so we go in and we talk about, can I drive into the property, safely get out of the van, safely go to an entrance that is zero threshold, wide enough doors. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I take a shower or a bath? Can I get to the bedroom and go to sleep? And can I participate in a family activity in the house? So we go through the quiz, and if you pass the quiz, you can actually now get a free listing on our website, but you won't get the certification medallion. So if you just have answer those questions, you include that information, your property can be seen. But a certification, we go a little bit deeper. We then look at your property, and we look at everything through the URL. So if your property is listed on Verbo or Airbnb or a local platform, we'll go in photo after photo and look at what are those accessible features that you do have. Again, sometimes you don't realize, like the concrete driveway, that equals access. And so we'll go in and we'll identify what they have. We'll identify and look at their description. What are they saying, the story side of their property? Because there is commonly, here's what we have. So we'll look at that, we'll edit that, we'll include the variety of imageries that show all of those features, and then you get a certification button. And the benefit of that is on our booking platform, and we hope to see it on others in the near future, is when you are looking for a property, all of our certified properties will come to the top. So if you're not certified, you're going to be on page, 6, like Google, but you want to be on the page 1. And that's what we do, is a certified property elevates to the top, but it has more detail across the board. And we validate, again, our free listings and our certified listings.
Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds like a really great system, and it makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing. So I know you also shared some just different properties, like the little yellow house and the beach property, and then you also mentioned that one that can fit 18 people. Are there any other like personal favorites, or I don't want to say favorites, but just
Right.
any like interesting ones that you'd like
I
to
think
mention?
for me, every property is like my favorite because I'm so excited. It's like, wow, we have this property in Wyoming. Well, we might only have 3 other properties in Wyoming. I mean, the reality is we do have the largest platform of accessible properties, but it's less than 1,200 properties. Let's amortize that again against 50 states. That's pitiful. Right now, like VRBO has 660,000 properties on their platform for the United States. Airbnb might have 1.2 million, but of those properties, less than 1% are accessible. So we're looking at roughly in the US, there are 1.5 million properties listed in the US, but less than 1,500 are accessible. And so if you look at our population of, well, just within the United States of what are we up now? 70,000 people with disabilities in the US?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I've just seen like more like percentage, like if we're talking about like
24,
mobility,
25%.
like maybe I've heard like 12% for mobility disabilities, but then the whole community could be like 30 million or something like that. But yeah, I don't have the exact, but it's definitely, a population that's not reaching as much as they have for like spending power and all of that with the options like you
So
mentioned.
yeah, we look at the 30 million, 20 million, 25 million in the United States, and there's only less than 1,500. That's where that education and awareness needs to come in, because there are not enough properties, period. And then we go back to the business side of it. There is a great business opportunity. What I recommend to folks all the time, and it's like, I guarantee you 100%, and I do, 100% you will have bookings if you are near a hospital, because there are so many people that have to travel and would prefer to stay close to the hospital, so when they have their 6 a.m. Crazy morning, have to be there, you're right there. Then there are times that insurance kicks you out, but you still have to be in the area for 24 hours. Where do you stay? Hotels, we're limited on hotels, and not everybody can stay in a hotel. And so we see it through respite care. We see it through a lot of different lenses of why this is so important. But there are very few accessible places to stay near a hospital. So if anybody wants to do an investment, that's the one. I guarantee you will have success.
Yeah, that's an awesome point and one I haven't thought of. I know when I travel, I do like research the healthcare in the area, just because it's important to me. But I know, you know, just being in the rare disease community, a lot of people have to travel out of state for second opinions and things like that. So there's multiple reasons why, being near a major hospital would make a lot of sense. So that's really super interesting. And that kind of leads to my next question, where where I just was kind of curious on the business side of it, because I think even if you aren't connected to, the disability community, the dollar signs may be ticking in your head hearing these things. But because I see a lot online where people are posting on social media about like second income streams, and rental properties are one of those things that's mentioned a lot. And upward mobility in society does depend a lot on money. So that's one obstacle that is present for many people with disabilities. So obviously you do need some money to invest in order to get started. But is there anything you can say to how feasible it is to not only set up a rental property, but keep it going? And then maybe some of the pros and cons of being involved in owning rental properties as a stream of income?
I'm a huge fan of accessible short-term rentals, and I've talked a lot about how they are in a home. They could be in a condo, but particularly because of Airbnb, you can have a room of your house. So if you are an individual with a disability looking for a revenue stream or a secondary revenue stream, you have an accessible bathroom, you have an extra bedroom, you have access into that property, then that may be something that you want to look at for a revenue source for you. And then taking that revenue, collecting it, and then investing in either a second rental or a rental. And I will give a plug to we have it hasn't been released yet, which I hope it will be soon. But we've created a 400 square foot mobile accessible unit. It has 52 accessible features for mobility and cognitive, and it has a kitchen, a great bathroom, living room, and a bedroom. And it's 400 square feet, but it has a punch. And it is affordable, and you can put it in your backyard. You can put it in an RV park. We hope that these will be in U.S. state parks for accessible units. So you can save your money and look at, gosh, I want something in my backyard, because Airbnb supports that. And it brings, again, travel and tourism to your community. It's how we were able and have been able to have two short-term rentals, is through the revenue. Again, for me, and my advice to other folks is looking at that accessibility component. There is a huge need. There is a low inventory for these properties. I was we do a lot of work in Arkansas, and I was talking with some folks in Bentonville, Arkansas, near Fayetteville, and that's where the Razorbacks are. And that there are, I think, 75,000 people that come to a football game, but yet there are less than 10 accessible short-term rentals in their community. And think about the alumni. Think about the grandparents, our multi-generational family, and how many more people could be going to those games and participating in that community if they had accessible places to stay. So, and going back to your question on, what is my favorite property? It is a property near a college. It is a property near an amusement park or a hospital, because again, it gives us the opportunity to create even more experiences in our life and create those memories. So yes, there are a lot of things to do, and it's sharing of that information. And of course, putting it on Becoming Rentable's website.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love all of the different business ventures you've had. I think they make so much sense objectively, and but like you said, I really love the aspect of just increasing people's opportunities for more experiences in their lives and being part of the same experiences that other people can access more easily. Um so do you have, I know you've actually mentioned a few already, but other than the ones you've mentioned, do you have any future plans that for becoming rentable? And if not, like, is there anything that you're kind of dreaming up or maybe would like to see in the future?
All the above. I want our platform to have 50,000, 100,000 rentals. I hope that we can grow to 2,000 rentals or 5,000 rentals this year. But again, the need is so great and there's so few. So growth is very important to me. I will share with you, and again, it hasn't gone really public yet, but it is official, and I'm really excited about it. We're working with a community in Oregon. It's called, I always get the name wrong. It is Rockaway Beach, Oregon. It is a travel destination in Oregon. That is their main revenue source is tourism, and there is a cap on how many short-term rentals that community can have. And that cap is at 400. So a couple months ago, I had the privilege of meeting with their planning committee and presenting the idea that if a short-term rental had these accessible features in it, because there were no accessible short-term rentals in the community, or minimal, I should say, would that property, if it was certified by a third party, be eligible to bypass that cap? And their town council voted yes. So we are going to be working with Rockaway Beach as our first community to create an ordinance that gives an accessible short-term rental an exception for a cap. And I know every state in the United States has caps on different communities for their short-term rental. So if we can now go out throughout the US and bring about more accessible short-term rentals, provide more revenue opportunities for these families. Sometimes these caps, if you're on a waiting list, may take 5 years, 10 years before you're eligible to have your property rented. But if it qualifies and passes our certification, you can have your property available for guests immediately.
Oh,
So
wow, that's awesome.
yeah, so that's really exciting. We are working with Expedia on education with their host. And so, of course, that is very exciting. We have signed a second year contract with Arkansas State Parks. So we will be working with Arkansas State Parks again, looking at the accessible features, bringing in some of our ambassadors to experience and then create content like you do to share that information. And we're always looking for new ambassadors, from Tillamook, Oregon to Boston, across from the north to the south. We really are trying to build our ambassador program so that we have ambassadors within our communities, not only for the work that we're doing, but also to become more engaged in that community, so that community becomes more accessible for their community and for guests who want to visit.
That's amazing. I love to hear that and all the things you have in the plans. I see, this kind of relates to what I was saying, where I hope, some of the progress goes into other types of construction too. Because I see one of the commenters was saying that they're trying to find an accessible apartment in New York. I don't know. Muse, I believe it's pronounced, if you're referring to New York City. I have heard that can be a difficult place to find accessible rentals, and it's like one of the most populated places in our country, so you would think, with all these smart minds and innovators, it wouldn't be as difficult, but it definitely can be from what I've heard. But I wish you the best of luck in your search. But yeah, so I don't see any other questions now, but anyone who's watching this after the fact, feel free to comment them and we'll get them answered. But before we go, Lorraine, where can we go to learn more about becoming rentable?
Well, it's so simple. It is going to our website, and that's becoming, then rent, R-E-N-T, then ABLE.com. And we have folks that are there that can, answer questions. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm Lorraine at becomingrentable.com. We're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're Instagram. I don't do all the social media stuff, but we're all over social media, and would love to hear what folks are looking for and how we can create awareness in their communities or where they'd like to travel.
That's amazing. I love it. I definitely plan to dig more into the website myself. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you and everyone else watching has a great rest of the evening.
Thank you.